Hi everyone and welcome to the Switch Automation webinar. Today I'll be covering the Switch Automation platform, from covering all of our products, how we integrate smart building technology into the Switch platform, giving you actionable insight to the data that's coming from your buildings. I'm going to start here on our general architecture overview. We start at the top here with our Switch Gateway. The Switch Gateway is used to plug in and talk to the subsystems that are installed in the building. Now that could be building management systems, commonly known as a BMS, the sub-metering systems for granular sub-metering of loads within the building. It could be anything else. It could be the new world of IoT sensors that are becoming more and more common in our day-to-day lives. So maybe humidity, and could be indoor air quality, so CO2, and even sensors like space utilization, seat monitoring, and so on. So the gateway is a part that would sit onto that network and requires an internet connection and connected to the local network. Data mapping is another way that we get data into the Switch platform. Now, data mapping is typically from like utility bills, could be work order systems, could be waste contractors feeding in waste into the Switch platform. So once we do with the data map, we configure it once in the Switch platform, and then we transfer files from that data mapping into the platform. So that could be by FTP, so file transfer protocol, or simply email into the Switch platform, and we'll deal with it and put all the data into the respective installation. And then APIs. API is an application programming interface, which is very common today with the more and more IoT sensors hitting the platform. A lot of other companies build API integrations to platforms, which is common in work order systems, utilities as well, and any other sort of people that have built their own standalone platform. I'm going to walk through 4 products that we have at Switch Automation: building intelligence, performance benchmarking, performance optimization, and finally, enterprise IoT. The first step in the building process and connecting your building to the Switch platform is here, where we install the gateway to the network. Once the gateway is installed on the network, we're actually able to run an application locally on the gateway that will scan for the network health. How ready is your building to be connected to a platform like Switch? Versions of firmware that you may have in the hardware that's been installed, and any potential vulnerabilities that may be exposed on your network. Now, this has typically been the realm of IT people in the organization. So companies like Cisco, I'm sure, you're able to access this, but typically with the IT, but more and more commonly today, the operations team need to have some understanding of what's going on to their networks from an IP standpoint, with cybersecurity being very much front and center of people's responsibility today. So the network health is all about connectivity to the systems. When I click through from the network health tile, I'm able to see here our response time from the gateway to the endpoints that we're communicating to. So in the case of this screenshot here, this is a building management system where we're able to see there's some response times that are maybe a little bit slow, but this will give us an idea of how the network is responding to our commands, because this often affects our data quality when we first connect to buildings. So if we don't get great data, bad data in is bad data out. So the common way that we're able to uncover any of these issues is by running this network health check, understanding if there is some slow response times to controllers, because it's not the visual layer, it's the underlying controllers, which you typically do not have visibility into today. So this is going to highlight any controllers that need replacement, or the comms cable between controllers is compromised. Next up is our smart building readiness. So many of our customers come to us and say, hey, I'm ready to get on board with a platform like this, but they're actually not. And what we're able to do with the smart building readiness is to understand what devices are immediately ready. Are all the ports in place? So a classic example of this is where we connect to a building system, we have the backnet, a vendor has said that the backnet is there and it's enabled, and then we find that the backnet ports haven't been commissioned on the network, or the backnet has not been enabled in those subsystems. So this is a great way to start. It could be even Modbus. So typically BACnet is port 47808 on BMS systems. Modbus is port 502. So we actually get into the detail here, and we're able to give you immediately a compatibility of, is your building ready to be connected? Firmware is also another common potential vulnerability, with versions being really old, out of date, or did expose potential vulnerabilities. So in this scan here, you can see this particular piece of hardware had 5 different versions of firmware throughout this building. So now we're able to monitor this. You could get your vendor back out to upgrade the firmware to the current version, rerun this scanning tool, and be able to understand that, okay, all of my firmware versions have been consolidated into the latest. So once you've got this forever. This is going to always run and be on the network. So we're able to understand when things go offline, when things come online, and obviously this firmware version. And finally, there's the port scanning part of this process. So we're able to understand and see what ports are open on pieces of equipment. So you can see here standard ports that you all would probably be familiar with. Port 80 is web traffic. Telnet is port 23. Port 80 is utilized for often web configuration of some hardware. So it's typically exposed on networks, but maybe not to the internet. Port 443, and you can run your eye down the list here. We've highlighted ports 16 and 85 in this particular report because it's not standard ports. Now, is this introducing some vulnerability onto the network? And this can be then validated by a subject matter expert or one of the people on the IT team. So that finishes the first step of when we connect to a building. We're able to now validate how the network health is. How are we able to see how fast we can talk to controllers on the network? Are the ports already in place? Are all the different protocols in place with the smart building readiness? The firmware versions, how are the firmware versions throughout the network and the connected devices? And then potentially any vulnerabilities that have weird ports that might be open and that might be exposed on the network. Once this step has been completed, we actually then start to go into the performance benchmarking of the platform. Performance benchmarking is really where we start to benchmark the buildings against their other peers. But we're actually, once we've done this process, we're able to, out of the box, create generic key performance indicators or KPIs. So in this case, we've got standard ones, which is energy. So the energy KPI would be made up of utility utility bills or submetering. So that would give you an energy KPI. Comfort is when we've connected to the building management system. So we're getting supply air temperature, temperature set point, and ambient air conditions. So we can actually give you a comfort score. And then maintenance KPI is for particular opportunities that have, poorly performing equipment, broken equipment, outstanding work orders if we've integrated to a work order platform. Now, these are the 3 basic ones. They're not by no means the end. We can have KPIs that relate to refrigeration. We can have ones for indoor air quality and so on. So these are just an example of KPIs that we've built for performance benchmarking. Now, if I draw our attention to the portfolio and in particular this location in Denver, you can actually see here the comfort KPI is down from the portfolio average of 75. From here, I'm able to look at my, alerts that I can see here that are affecting my KPI score. We can see here there's 5 that are predominant and they're at a critical level within the platform. So this might be where you stop. This could be a facilities manager sitting down in the morning, having a look at their portfolio in one place. You're able to look at the portfolio, then drill down into individual sites, which you typically can't do in any BMS because you often don't have a standard BMS across all of your building portfolio. So the Switch platform helps you consolidate all of the building systems into one single user interface. So these alert notifications have come from this Denver location. I'm going to click through here now. This is the alerts analysis part of the platform. This is where you may then use a subject matter expert to understand and identify the data that's within this particular screen. You could do it yourself. I mean, some facilities managers are engineers, but then also, you know, the vendor that may be responsible for repairing this fault would come to site and then analyze. So as you can see in the chart here, we're actually looking at the interval data coming from the building management system here. I've connected to an air handler unit here. I'm looking at the occupancy command and the supply air temperature. Now at 9 a.m., the supply air temperature started to increase. At a point here, at about 11 a.m., it actually got to a critical threshold, which is where the shading has turned red. And then after the fact, it's actually been fixed. So this has happened back in time, but this was fixed via vendor. So we've got validation also within this screen. From here, we actually can hand over to potentially a trusted vendor, or we might actually do a little bit more investigation, you know, ourselves. So I can actually, from this screen, create an event that I might want to send to a vendor, and I'll go into the events in a moment. I could control this unit if it was compatible with the underlying subsystem, so, you know, a standard protocol like BACnet or Modbus. But in this case, I'm actually going to jump into site analysis to give me a little bit more understanding of when this alert triggered, what else was going on with this air handler unit. Okay, this is the site analysis tool in the Switch platform. I can actually come into here now. It's brought me in with my air handler occupancy status and the supply air temperature. But with this lobby air handler unit, I'm actually going to look at the chilled water valve along with the fan speed. So now I can actually see here that the chilled water valve got stuck. You can see the green line is where the chilled water valve didn't open when the unit was called for cooling. And it was all the way along to here where the temperatures all increased. It got to that critical threshold. And then technician was dispatched, fixed on site, and we've got validation ongoing from here. So actually within this part of the platform, we can actually trend all the interval data from any subsystem that we might have in here. So we want to trend waste, we want to trend submeters, we want to trend BMS. This is a very, very powerful tool within the platform for charting and data analytics and insight into the interval data that we're collecting. Coming back to our overview page, this is where we now kick into the performance optimization of the Switch platform. Performance optimization is all about extending the functionality from the performance benchmarking, which was really specific on the KPIs and some guidance around what root cause might be of solving some issues with equipment or subsystems. But once we introduce performance optimization, we're actually really now giving, you know, actionable accountability in the Switch platform. This is the events part of the Switch platform. I've clicked through from here from the overview page to give me a list of things that are currently active in my building. So this is an opportunity for people to understand and see what's currently being worked on in the building to help optimize this building. So in the example I showed earlier, I've got this air handler unit that was supplying hot air into the space. I can actually come into here now, create an event ticket. An event identification is applied. We can actually see it by event name, by the site, by what status is it, what category is it, right the way through to opportunity cost savings as well. So if we know exactly what it's going to take to fix this, or in the impacts if we do not fix this, we're able to show that here and report out on this. If I click through into the event details, you can see here we can comment and we can talk to a building support team potentially. We can copy and paste this URL over here on the left into a work order platform that you may already have, so that then the vendors who are responsible for fixing it will have all the information that's being captured on hand by either another trusted vendor or potentially the subject matter experts that work within your organization. So this is very interactive. We can click on any of these thumbnails and show annotated charts with the root cause description on here. We can click back through to the charting tools to validate these issues have been fixed and resolved. And for more complicated tasks, we can actually introduce subtasks to these events. So you may need other vendors, you may need control tech, a mechanical tech, maybe an electrician, maybe a plumber to go and fix these. So we can actually introduce these subtasks to these events where people that are responsible for those tasks are notified, and then ultimately the program manager is notified once the event is closed out. So you'll be able to monitor that. So once we've captured all of those events for the entire portfolio that we might be connected to, we're able to actually then report on each one of those pieces of information from there. So we can actually then see and really understand how your smart building program is going within your portfolio. So this is where I'll introduce a reporting part of the platform, which is in our workspaces, or commonly known as dashboards. Clicking through here, here's a smart building program impacts report that's interactive. And if it does look familiar, this is actually leveraging embedded Power BI into the Switch platform. So Power BI helps facilitate really agile reporting and configurable custom interactive reports within the platform. Leveraging all the data that we've collected, we've normalized all the data, so you're able to then bring in this level of reporting over the top of all of the information that we've captured from all the subsystems, ensuring that your operations teams are armed with all the information in real time. So here's an example of a portfolio-wide report of many buildings across the United States, and identifying that there's 48 opportunities here with over $350,000 in cost opportunities ranked by site. So this is very, very powerful information to give to site teams on the opportunities to fix and tune your buildings. And then finally, I want to circle back a little bit, because enterprise IoT is really everything the Switch platform has to offer. The big difference in this case is where we actually have control. So we're able to control pieces of hardware from the get-go. So from day one, we're able to interface with pieces of equipment from control. And within this user interface, we're able to affect temperatures, fan speeds, chilled water valves, and whatever that might be that's underlying. You'll see that the user interface is consistent, it's clean, and irrespective of underlying systems, as long as there's a compatible system protocol like BACnet or like Modbus, we're able to affect control of those subsystems. We also have scheduling, so you can schedule pieces of equipment to run. So that could be lighting commands, it could be air conditioner units and so on. And that's the enterprise IoT piece of the Switch platform, really closing the loop on all types of connectivity, whether it's new breed of IoT sensors communicating on MQTT, or it's BACnet, or it's Modbus, or any other protocol that we may have an open driver, an open integration path to. We're able to introduce that into the Switch platform. So coming back to the overview page, that wraps up our summary of the Switch platform, a really light introduction to the platform and its capabilities. I thank you for listening and look forward to having you on the next video.